Why do you keep saying yes and don't have the balls to say no?
And what you allow to come in your mind controls your fucking heart. A man's word right now doesn't mean shit. Imagine if you just have that in your life. You have the truth and you have honor. That everything that comes out of your fucking mouth, you do it. That you do the shit that you said you're gonna do.
Welcome back to the Warrior Week podcast. I am your coach, Max. This is our coach, Coach Sam. How are you doing today,
Hey,
Coach?
how you doing, man?
Very good. I'm excited to talk about the pain of being. And something I really want to talk about, Coach, is this inability of men to say no when they really don't want to do something. And then they build resentment by always saying yes. And then they find themselves in a fucking pit or a hole. And they just can't get out of that. And they're always either Mr. Nice Guy or the one that's trying to appease somebody. And, I give you the example always of, I don't like going to the park. So I just tell my kids, hey guys, I don't want to go to the park. I'll go to the beach. And I just tell them that instead of telling them, hey, I'll go to the park and be unhappy. And I'm just real honest and truthful with it. But a lot of guys don't have that ability, or telling their wife, I don't want to do something, or telling, a friend they don't want to do something.
Yeah, and so the pain that you mentioned, you said pain in being, and it's very relevant because it is, everything starts in how we perceive ourselves to be, right? And how we perceive ourselves to be, and how we move into developing relationship with those that are, first of all, in our closest proximity or degree of importance. And that is often considered as our family. If you're a grown-ass man with a wife and kids, I mean, your wife is the most important person in your life. And then your kids become the fruit of that marriage and the family unit, and they become the most important people in your life as well. If you are single, if you are young, and then by that, maybe perhaps, depending on the relationship that you have with your parents or your sibling, that surrounding becomes the most important, or friends and family that you have created through your experiences in relationship with them. And chances are those groups, you can only basically count them on the finger. And, you're not going to sit here and say, here are the 15 most important people in my life. You can say it, but the reality is that, and the truth is that, the foundation of trying to prove that will crumble in pieces as you open your mouth and try to build an argument. And so it all comes down to a few people, always a few people in the family unit, and the people are the most important to us. Depending on how you have led that family unit and how you've trained your relationship, especially in your communication and the configuration of your moral values inside of your marriage, and where the line draws, and where you stand as a man, and where you stand as a husband, and where you stand as a loving husband, and where you stand as a servant, and so on and so on. Right? There's all these categories. If you haven't created a grid and a training of the way you communicate with your wife and that, then you pretty much have a marriage that is built based on a flow. And when you have built a marriage based on the flow, you have pretty much given the control of your moral configuration and values and how you'll be to two things. One, either to another individual, in this case is your wife, or to circumstances.
Yeah, which is the worst.
and allow time to be the pilot of the circumstances plane. And, some travel destinations are good and some are shitty, but overall, you're kind of happy, right? And year goes by, and then there's a decade or 20 years that goes by, and you look back and you're fundamentally not happy where you are in your relationship with your wife. You're just not happy. But you find yourself in a place, sorry about that. You find yourself in a place where you can even communicate the fact that you're unhappy, because that will immediately open a door for a war, and if you want a collision that is uninvited, that is unexpected, and above all, that you're not ready for. So what happens is that you end up being a man that has that war and that conflict in your mind by yourself alone. So you keep saying yes, but the war happens in your mind, but your mouth is silent, and life goes on, not according to what you want, not according to what your moral configuration of the marriage should be as a leader, but as somebody that went with the flow and allowed circumstances to define, your relationship.
Yeah, it hits where it's like tolerance is acceptance. The more that I tolerate it, the more that I'm willing to accept it. And that's the message that you're giving out. So by saying, hey, I'm going to go by the flow, or you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and stuff this emotion, or I'm going to stuff this interaction, that becomes a problem. And then all of a sudden we keep stuffing. And then we blow up. We find ourselves fucking doing shit we shouldn't be doing. We find ourselves, fighting back when really it's just a fucking conversation. It's Correct. Just a real easy conversation with our significant other, with, even our kids or our circles that aren't very, very big. And then that bleeds into what? You blow up at a fucking coworker, or you blow up in the fucking driving along the road. And nobody wants to address this feeling of emotion inside of men.
Yeah. And sadly, on the other side, when you have a wife that sits there and kind of tolerates this and kind of accept this and kind of is okay with it, and on her end, maybe she have an attempt to communicate to you to say, hey man, something needs to change, but like she's speaking Chinese and you speaking English, and there's no understanding. There's just common languages and signs. And that seems to be good enough in that communication, because it gets the job done. It gets the logistical job done about the kids. It gets the, the kiss of coming in, good morning, and going out. It gets those minimum things done. But at the end of the night, if you're sitting on a couch every night and you're drinking a glass of whiskey and your wife's upstairs on her phone and she's doing her thing, and there seems to be this disconnect, there's something wrong in the communication. No matter how you label your marriage, no matter how you say you're good, no matter how you say like, oh, there's no infidelity, no matter how much you say, I don't watch porn, and no matter how much you want to label this marriage as good, it's complete shit, because your communication is minimum. And both of you have accepted the standard of what is. The standard of that separation. And that's a problem, man. That is an absolute problem that circulates inside of marriages today. And so when a woman on the other side allow a man to operate that way, you get the worst kind of man. You get a man that retrieve, that doesn't talk, that stays silent, that stays angry, that stays not happy. And it's a disaster. It's a disaster.
Yeah, it's like a man that's you're allowing him not to be all in, and both inside that relationship grow apart, and neither have any clue of really what the other one wants, and what the other one needs, because there's no communication there. And fuck, that's something that we really, really fucking suck at, is communicating. And I say we, I mean all of us, but you have to be willing to work on it. Yeah. But if you're not, and you're disconnected, like you're saying, you got a whiskey. Well,
let's make it very clear. We don't suck at communicating. I think we're excellent communicators when it comes to talking. We suck ass at fucking listening.
Yes. Yes.
Like, here's the reality, right? Men suck ass. Let me repeat that again. Men suck ass at listening.
Yeah, they're especially us entrepreneurs. We want to.
I'll put myself first. At first of the line. I suck ass at listening. I'm very good at talking. Very, very good. Trust me, I'm very, very good at talking to my wife. But man, is the shit that's coming out of my mouth relevant to what I had just listened to if I'd listened to?
Yeah. I mean, and that goes back to just saying yes, so I don't have to listen. It just, I'm going to say yes. She's going to get out of here. She can go get on her phone. I can go ahead and get my whiskey, or I can watch my TV show instead of actually listening. Like, there's some days you come home and it starts to like go, and you're like, well, fuck, how do I get out of this? And then really, it's a very emotional and necessary part of a relationship.
Yeah, 100%. If you're not engaged, you're not listening. So if you're faking it, if you're faking your engagement in the conversation, if you're standing there like a piece of meat and you're showing all the signs that you're listening, but yet you're thinking about the business, yet you're thinking about something else. Often you're thinking about, okay, I wish you just stopped talking about that particular topic. I'm really interested to talk to you, but I want to talk about this particular, especially a topic where I can criticize you and then we can come up with a solution for you. I'm really interested in talking about that. Like, I'm really interested in talking about how come you didn't wash the dishes, and then we can conclude that now that you listen to me telling you that you should wash the dishes this way by the time I come home and dinner is ready, then you actually go ahead and solve that problem, which is tomorrow you wash the dishes and you make the food ready. I'm really good at communicating that and wanting that outcome. You understand? We communicate with an attachment and the desire to an outcome that solves the fucking problem. And yet they're constantly communicating the problem they have in Chinese. So what you and I have to do is not only be good listeners, but we need to be good listeners in Chinese. That means we should go learn fucking Chinese. And every woman comes from a different part of China.
Yes.
So just because, your woman speaks Chinese, well, it doesn't mean that that's a standard language that you can teach to me so I can understand, because my woman speaks Chinese, but from the North Mountain, and that's a complete different language. It is every single man to go and learn the language. I do not believe in the common language of all wives and all these guys that go out there and they teach other married men how their wife is talking to them based on the fact that their wife talked to them like that, or generalize the talks of them. You can generalize men because we have penises, but as a man, you cannot generalize women. You can only have an observation on one particular case, and that's what it is. That's a one particular case.
Yeah, and then as you start learning that new language and you start being able to communicate, it's gonna fuck up. It's not gonna communicate well, and you have to be willing to understand. Okay, hey, that didn't go right, and then keep working. Almost back to what we were talking about of a non-finisher and a quitter. Because it's easy to quit. It's easy to be like, okay, I learned the language. I went to speak it. It didn't fucking come out right. It didn't get what I wanted, or she didn't get what she wanted. I'm done with it. I'm fucking over it. I'm going to split the other way. I'm going to move the opposite direction.
Very good point, right? Because, then we have to develop patience in it. And also we have to understand that this idea of communication, the goal here is not to solve any problem. We're not if she comes and says, solve my problem, then solve it. The minute when she's sharing something or saying something and you're trying to solutionize, all you're saying is that you're dumb enough not being able to think about this, so I'm going to come here and fucking solutionize for you. And she hears that you're not listening. She hears that you're criticizing. She hears that, oh, I need help. She feels less. So there's all these conversations and these back and forth. Now, it all depends on who you married. I'll just talk to you about my particular case. That doesn't mean that it's true in yours. It all depends who you married. It all depends how you have showed up in this marriage in the past 20 years. So you ask me why guys are not able to say no and they're saying yes, because they never trained on how to say no and be okay with the consequences and hold the frame. And even at time when you said no, after a while, you give into a yes. So it's a matter of training. The guy has to train himself. And the second part, it's a matter of untraining the communication platform that you establish with your wife. Because if you're trained, but you're not willing to untrain that communication platform, then you're not going to get results. You're going to get the quitting. I did talk to her this way and this is not working, so fuck it.
Yeah, and then in turn creates lack of certainty inside of you, inside of her, and inside of the relationship, and then drives the divide. And it's a great example because the relationship with your wife is your closest in proximity, like you started with, which in turn also turns into the way you communicate in business, or
Correct.
the way you communicate with God, or communicate with everybody in general.
Correct.
And so, like, how do I get into the ability to be certain of saying no, or just by fucking saying no when the answer is no?
It's simple, man. It's called practice, and practice cannot take place if training didn't take place initially. So first is train, know how. You got to learn how to collide. You ask me why should I learn how to collide? Because you never did. You're not able to collide. You collide in your fucking head all the time. You don't collide with the other people. So you have to learn how to collide, and then you got to put it into a series of practice. You're going to learn how to play tennis, and then you have to practice tennis before ever showing up in a fucking tournament and having a chance of winning.
Yeah, and if you're someone that says, well, I collide all the time, that's a problem in itself. Yeah, because then you're not willing to listen, and you're not understanding the opposite side of it. Because that's me. That's me. I'll fucking collide with anybody, but it doesn't necessarily serve me or the situation.
Yeah. Collide is not to destroy. Collide has the intention of rebuilding. And if you don't know how to rebuild, then you have no business destroying. If you can't be a demolition company that doesn't have any understanding of how things are built. If the greatest construction demolition company, have actually staff on board that come from actual construction company that understand the requirement, the requirement of what is it necessary to rebuild from ground zero. If you don't have that much, you shouldn't be in the business of demolition.
Yeah, I mean, I like demolition, but I hate fucking finish work.
Yeah,
I fucking hate the nitty gritty part of finish work, and that's something that requires the training. It requires the work, that daily ability to be okay with, hey, that wasn't very successful, or I got to get better at this, and a constant reevaluation of what we say for all of us is the ability to reevaluate where we're at. And that goes back to, again, the connection of, I'm going to put back in business, where people suck at getting kicked. People suck at being told, hey, you fucking failed at this. You didn't do this correctly. And it's the truth of it. And yet they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of like managers or business owners don't want to have that conversation.
Well, 80% of the energy of most managers and even like business owners, or even like especially people within corporate, 80% of their energy goes to man pleasing.
Fuck.
It just goes to that, that I have to please this person, I have to be liked, and they fight for that. They fight to be liked, and they fight not to be disliked, especially today, because the minute you start going just a little bit left or just a little bit right, you're condemned. You're asked to leave. You're now somebody that wants to hurt people, and you're the enemy of the state. And so people are scared, man. People are scared. People are scared of being themselves. And inside of that, that's a huge problem. If you relate this whole principle of not being able to collide in an environment that suppresses collision. How are you going to collide in a company that suppresses collision? But guaranteed, man, if you don't change your fucking job, you're going to end up the same miserable guy in your marriage. How you show up at work is going to end up how you show up at home. If not, you're going to have to live double personality, 2 lives. And that's the sad part. That's why people are depressed, so-called depressed. That's why people want to sedate. That's why people want to drink, want to take a pill. They want to change their current state because their current state is painful. Why? Because they feel they're playing 2 roles throughout the day.
Yeah.
Or 1 role all day that is the fake one.
I mean, and when you say that, it immediately goes to this action item of being okay with saying no if the answer is no. What does that look like if you're willing to learn how to say no and move forward with that, and understanding that society has lied to us all in that we are not in a world of being comfortable and not colliding. We're in a world that constantly needs colliding to grow, to actually move forward and find growth.
100%. And but you just have to learn the art and science of collision. And it's not through a book, sadly, but it's really through experiences, and you're going to have to put some training behind it, and you're going to have to put some practice into that.
Beautiful. Coach, if this resonated with you and you're looking at an idea of how to collide and how that would work inside of this, fill out an application on warriorweeknow.com. If these podcasts are resonating with you, go and look at some more. We got hundreds of them at our website at Warrior Week. Also, too, follow us on social media. And Coach, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And soon we're gonna be putting a short documentary out there. It's an hour documentary. It'll be on warriorweek.com. That is really going to take a lot of stuff that we talk about here and kind of put it all into one continuous dialogue, leading a person that wants to train, that wants to practice, that wants to make some changes, above and beyond reading books and above and beyond all the methods that you tried and at best that brought you here. Then that will be on Warrior Week. And of course, it's still on warriorweek.com, and you can go there and apply today and see if you're one of the candidates that could be accepted to be part of this experience with us.
That's beautiful. I'm excited about that. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Quit on your wife, quit on your kids, quit on your desires. It's okay to be okay. Manually putting the fucking blindfold on yourself. Tonight, you're gonna find out what power is.